The groom's speech. Traditionally, the groom speaks after the father of the bride and before the best man, but your running order might be different. Essentially, your role here is to respond to the father of the bride and possibly to your own father if he's given a speech too. You then have to thank everyone and say nice things about your new bride. The guests will probably be delighted to hear from you and how you're feeling on this special day, but they'll also expect that you and the bride have had a lot of other things to prepare for in the run-up to the big day. So they won't be expecting a long speech. But in my experience, it's still best to prepare for this ahead of time, just like any other speech. You'll probably want to thank a long list of people who have helped in the preparation of the wedding, and you won't want to miss anyone, so having a separate card with everyone's name on it would be very helpful. And you can easily start by saying you don't want to miss anyone, so you have a list to make sure. One thing you probably want to avoid though is doubling up on thanking everyone, as that can get pretty boring really quickly. So if you and your bride are both giving a speech, why not split the thank yous between you? Introduction. Unless you're having a very small and intimate wedding, you may not have met everyone yet by the time the wedding speeches roll around. So while you can be pretty confident that everyone knows who you are, it's still a good idea to introduce yourself as a matter of formality. This will usually get a good laugh and keep everyone in good spirits for the speeches. You'll also want to thank everyone for coming and hope they're having a good time. Now is a good time to thank both your parents and the bride's parents, especially if they've been helping out with the preparations. If your bride is also speaking, then you can just keep this to a few personal lines and move on rather than going over the same ground as she will later. The in-laws, or the outlaws, depending on how well you get on. The parents of the bride are important to the proceedings, and they are now your new family, so it would be a good idea to get a few nice words in about them with personal anecdotes about your relationship. The bride will probably be thanking them more, so it's really just about your own relationship with them, but you might like to thank them for raising such a great daughter, for example. The maid of honor and the bridesmaids. There's a tradition that the groom and the best man both thank the bridesmaids and the maid of honor and tell the guests how much they've helped. Again, if your bride is going to be giving a speech, it might be more appropriate for her to do this part. Either way, it's no harm for you to acknowledge their support. Your own parents and family. Now is the time to thank your own parents and family members for everything they've done for you throughout your life, in the run-up to the wedding and everything in between. Keep it brief. I know that might be a tall order given the wealth of stories and anecdotes you no doubt have about your relationship, but try to keep it brief and relevant. Now, moving on to the bride. No, not like that. Obviously, the main part of your speech should be about your bride, but don't be too gushing. While it's perfectly acceptable and expected for you to be romantic at this point, even your most cynical friends will give you a pass on this one, so let loose. You'll get far more brownie points from your bride than you'll get comments from your friends. Now, you might not have known your bride for as long as your parents, but I'm sure you know some things about her that they don't. You can choose one or two anecdotes about why you love this woman, but don't get too personal. If you've had a whirlwind romance and getting married quickly, or if you've been together for years, you might want to comment or two about this. It will help the guests get into your frame of mind and share the special nature of the day. There's a full video later on how to start structuring your speech and how to brainstorm ideas. The best way to end your speech is with a final anecdote and a desire to build a happy and loving future together in. So that's the basic outline of the groom's speech. You want to thank lots of people, tell a few stories, and declare to a room full of people how much you love your partner. Remember that even though it's your big day and everyone is there to celebrate with you, you really want to keep your speech to 5 minutes or less too. It may be tough to cut some of the great anecdotes and stories from people in the wedding party, but if there are a few speeches, your guests will thank you for keeping it brief. You can always tell people that you have a few other stories that you had to cut from the speech in order to save the public humiliation of the people involved, and that you're more than happy to tell the stories one-on-one after dinner.